Good morning, everyone. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Wednesday, May 20th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Shin Se-min. And before we begin, these are the stories we're following at this hour. And after an 80-day delay to the start of the academic calendar, South Korea's high school seniors becomes the first to head back to classrooms starting this Wednesday. Fears still linger, however, due to small clusters of new infections across the nation. Efforts for post-coronavirus economic recovery continue as the nation slowly returns to normal. The country's top economic policy chief vowed $408 million of support for mid to large-sized businesses with over 300 employees in the aviation and shipping industries. Plus, the presidential inauguration takes place in Taiwan for leader Tsai Ing-wen, who starts her second term today. But tensions are growing as the inauguration comes with the President Trump administration challenging Beijing for influence over the island. Our starting point this morning, high school seniors in South Korea are back to school this Wednesday, becoming the first group of students in the country to physically go back to classes after months of school closures due to the COVID-19 outbreak. All students must wear face masks and apply hand sanitizer before going to school, and thermal imaging cameras will also be set up at entrances to check students' temperatures as well as those of teachers. Those that exceed 37.5 degrees Celsius will be sent home if their fever doesn't subside. Should any problems arise, the government may switch back to online classes. South Korea's finance ministry has vowed to swiftly secure an almost $2.9 billion supplementary budget for job creation efforts in the public sector. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said Wednesday morning that the funds will be used to create more than 550,000 new jobs, including some 100,000 jobs in non-contact and digital sectors. Hong also pledged around $33 billion over the coming month to support local industries hit hard by the pandemic, including the aviation and marine transport sectors. The ministry will announce detailed plans to boost consumption and investment, as well as South Korea's own version of the New Deal in early next month when it lays out its economic policy direction for the second half of this year. And lawmakers will be holding their last plenary session of South Korea's 20th National Assembly in the next coming hours. More than 100 non-contentious bills will be put up for a vote, including a bill on expanding the method of online self-verification. Others include creating a committee to reinvestigate unresolved historical issues involving past governments and making it mandatory for portal sites to delete illegal sex-related materials and blocking access to such content. And South Korea's 21st National Assembly begins on May 30th, with Park Byung-seok of the ruling Democratic Party looking set to take the helm as the new parliamentary speaker. The COVID-19 pandemic has laid waste to the global airline industry as countries worldwide have either slammed shut their borders or instituted tough entry quarantine measures that have decimated tourism. However, South Korean airlines are gradually ramping up their international services as the curve appears to be flattening in the number of countries. Our Choi Won-jung with us details.
Empty seats throughout the terminal. Fewer people waiting to check in for flights. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to grip the world, many airlines around the world have all but halted their international services in recent months. South Korea's flagship carrier Korean Air is gradually reopening international routes that have been suspended as a result of the pandemic. However, given the circumstances, new guidelines will be in place.
From May 18th, all domestic passengers are required to wear face masks, and passengers must scan their own boarding pass before boarding. We are doing everything we can to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Since the virus emerged, Korean Air has allocated seats based on the number of reservations to keep social distancing between passengers.
This isn't that hard because we've been wearing face masks for so long anyway. But I'm worried that it will become uncomfortable to wear masks when it gets warmer, so I hope COVID-19 is eradicated soon.
The airline's flight attendants also wear goggles and protective gowns while serving passengers during flights. An official from Korean Air says the airline will open 32 of its 110 international routes starting in June. 최원정, Arirang News.
Countries taking part in the WHO's annual assembly have agreed on the need for a transparent and fair access to vaccines and treatment against COVID-19, which has infected almost 5 million people across the world. They also endorsed a resolution tabled by the EU to start an independent probe into the WHO's response to the pandemic. Our Kim Hyo-san with more.
The 194 member states of the World Health Organization are calling for the need for transparent, equitable, and timely access to any treatments or vaccines developed against COVID-19. During the World Health Assembly meeting on Tuesday held virtually, its members also agreed to launch an independent probe into the WHO's handling of the pandemic. The agreement came as the European Union initiated a resolution calling for a comprehensive, impartial, and independent assessment of the agency's response. It was endorsed by nearly 100 member states. Welcoming the resolution, the WHO chief highlighted the principles of transparency and accountability.
As always, WHO remains fully committed to transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement. We want accountability more than anyone.
The resolution was supported by China and the U.S., who have been at odds over the WHO following the Trump administration's threats to withdraw from the agency. On the day of the meeting, President Trump threatened to permanently halt funding for the WHO if it does not commit to improvements within 30 days. Washington, however, was criticized by the EU for weakening multilateral cooperation and coordination in the face of a global crisis. On the sidelines, the issue of enabling Taiwan to attend the conference was also a hot topic. In the run-up to the meeting, calls for Taiwan to be allowed to join, led mainly by the U.S., threatened to anger Beijing, which has blocked Taiwan from attending since 2016 under its One China policy. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
South Korea will serve as a member of the World Health Assembly's Executive Board. It is the 7th time the country has been appointed as a board member in its roughly 70-year history. South Korea has designated Vice Health Minister Kim Kang-lip to serve as a member of the Executive Board. Kim, who also acts as South Korea's Senior Policy Coordinator at Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters of COVID-19, will serve a 3-year term starting this year. Now, the main functions are to give efforts to decisions and policies and act as an advisory panel to the Assembly. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen is starting her second term today, with the presidential inauguration taking place in Taipei at 9 a.m. local time. The United States has also congratulated Taiwan's president, giving her full support while indirectly criticizing China. Our Kim Jae-hee with more.
Taiwan's first female president, Tsai Ing-wen, kicked off her second term on Wednesday with high approval from her people and from the U.S., but with mounting pressure from China. Tsai and her Democratic Progressive Party have successfully contained the spread of the COVID-19, earning much support from the Taiwanese public. A recent poll by a Taiwanese think tank showed Tsai's approval ratings reached 74.5%, the highest rating any Taiwanese president has reached so far. But she still faces a challenge from Beijing, whose One China policy doesn't see Taiwan as a sovereign nation. With Tsai's inauguration coming just days after Taiwan was excluded from the World Health Organization's annual assembly under Chinese pressure, all eyes now turn to how Beijing will respond to Tsai's inaugural address. Meanwhile, Tsai has been receiving praise and support from the U.S. In a statement on Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo congratulated Tsai on her re-election and wished her a successful second term. At the same time, he indirectly criticized China, saying that Taiwan's democracy is an inspiration to Taiwan and also the world. He praised Taiwan's response to the COVID-19 outbreak and added that the U.S. has long considered Taiwan a reliable partner. He said the two sides have shared a vision for the region, one that includes rule of law, transparency, prosperity, and security for all. This is in line with recent remarks from the U.S. towards China. President Trump's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, on Tuesday slammed Chinese firms for their lack of transparency and accountability, adding they do not meet the norms and regulations. He went on to warn Americans that they cannot invest confidently in Chinese companies. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell spent most of their Tuesday in the hot seat, being grilled by senators on the Trump administration's $2 trillion plus COVID-19 rescue package. Now, they both defended it, and Mnuchin also warned that states need to reopen ASAP to prevent long-term damage to the American economy. Our Lee Seung-jae with more.
During a Senate Banking Committee hearing conducted Tuesday via video conference, a number of senators questioned U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell on the need for the massive coronavirus relief package worth some $2.2 trillion. Powell, who in an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday, indicated Americans need 3 to 6 more months of financial assistance, told senators that more spending could stop the recession deepening. Powell called on Congress to approve more programs to ensure economic growth, while Mnuchin said he's still working to launch the relief programs that were authorized 2 months ago. Another issue at hand was criticism the Trump administration is pressing to reopen the American economy too soon, leaving workers vulnerable to the virus. Mnuchin said while no workers should give their lives to go back to work, there could be permanent damage to the economy if it isn't reopened soon.
There is the risk of permanent damage, and as I've said before, we're conscious of the health issues, and we want to do this in a balanced and safe way.
While the unprecedented steps to shut down the U.S. economy has led to massive unemployment and other negative indicators, Mnuchin remained optimistic the economy will improve as long as Americans safely start going back to work.
Working closely with the governors, we are beginning to open the economy in a way that minimizes risk to workers and customers. We expect economic conditions to improve in the third and fourth quarter and into next year.
However, little is known about the long-term effects of the relief packages and when the individual states will finally and fully reopen. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The CEO of Google and its parent company Alphabet says he expects to bring the bulk of their employees back to the office by the end of this year on a rotating schedule basis as a way to maintain COVID-19 social distancing guidelines. Sundar Pichai said on Tuesday that by the end of the year, Google will be at 20 to 30% capacity, meaning it will be able to get 60% of its employees in once a week. Google will start by bringing 10 to 15% of its workers into the office at any time. Alphabet will also prioritize employees who need to be in the office. And Pichai added that he believes the company will cap office attendance at around 20 to 30% of workers at any given time.
Good morning. Today is Soman according to the East Asian calendar. Our ancestors believed conditions become more summer-like around this time of year. I mean, it should get warmer as we are near the end of May. Well, today's temperatures will be 2 to 7 degrees higher for most parts. Those of you in southern parts of the country, though, will notice a big rise in readings by the afternoon, but the East Coast will have cooler daytime highs due to easterly winds today. And the further south you are, the more sunshine you'll see today with stronger UV levels, while eastern parts of Gangwon-do province will have 5 to 10 millimeters of more rainfall into the evening. So daily highs will be slightly below the seasonal norms today, ranging from 17 to 22 degrees Celsius, and the weather will be more stable under a fair amount of sunshine. Readings will hike to near the seasonal norms starting tomorrow, but big gaps between lows and highs will continue for the time being. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for news around the world.
And that wraps it up for this edition of Arirang News. As always, thanks for watching.